Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. November is almost over. Yes. So I will be finished with the Yumi Art diamond painting. If you want to see what it looks like finished, I'll show it off on my Craft With Me Wednesday tonight. My special guest will be Color and Chat with Joanna. She's trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're going to help her along, and we're going to see where she's at with this painting, because this was our month-long color along. So, and then I'll show you what I'm going to be working on in December. Lots of stuff to get to. But first, yes, I got the Mary Maxim catalog. Now, I know you guys are waiting for the true crime part. Okay, it's coming. But first, look what is on the cover. This is the Afghan that I want to do next year. It's done in panels. It's a Grafghan. I call it Grafghan. That's just me. Last year I did the gnomes. I'm still working on the gnomes. That's actually what I'm going to be working on next. But I wanted this kit in pinks. It comes in pinks. But look at that. So it's on my wish list, which is down in the description. Yes, it made the cover. Anyway, we're going to put this in the garbage because, well, maybe not. Because if I don't get it for Christmas, I'm gonna for sure order it. Anyway, so yesterday was the finale, should we say, of the Murdaugh saga. So of course, I'm going to cover it. I contemplated going live, but I knew this was something that was going to be very lengthy, and I was not wrong about that. It started at 9 a.m. my time, Central Time, and it went till after, I think it didn't end until after 2 p.m. my time, 3 p.m., all day, 3 p.m. Eastern, yeah. But all the players were there. Jim Harpootlian and Dick Griffin, his attorneys, Alex Murdaugh attorneys, of course, they were there. And all the players, Eric Bland, defense attorney for Gloria Satterfield, Eric Richter, who represents a lot of the other victims in the financial crimes, and Mark Tinsley, the boat crash lawyer. They were all there. Now, some of the people I didn't see, Chris Wilson, the attorney that his good friend Chris Wilson that he tried a case with and then took all the money, he was not there, but he pretty much, the judge has already heard from him because he testified during the murder trial. So the judge really knows how Chris feels about him. But so quite a few people had, this was the victim's opportunity to speak, according to Marcy's law, which now is in effect, in most places. You have to give the victims an opportunity to come forward and address the court. Well, they weren't addressing the court. They were addressing Alex Murdaugh, which is how it generally goes nowadays. And then he stood up and made this very lengthy speech, which, my God, it just went on and on and on, and I just couldn't wait for it to be over, because who can believe a single thing he says? And you know when he's lying, right? When his lips are moving, right? Okay. So, did I turn on my microphone? I did. Thank God. I don't have to do this twice. All right, let's talk about the sentencing. So, first, the state attorney, he gets up and he starts to talk, and the judge sort of says, well, wait a minute. Well, does the defense have anything they want to say as an opening? Because the attorney general, not the state attorney, the attorney general, he, or assistant attorney general, he was just going to jump right into it. So the defense gets up and they're like, yeah, we have something we want to say. And you got to hear what he said, because he just belittles people. And it's so, I do not like this man, and I make no bones about it. I think he's really old school. This is why this is why I got out of the legal profession. This is why I stopped being an attorney, because of people like him. They're just, anyway.
Harpootlian, do you have any introductory comments?
Your Honor, only to note that at a juncture after Mr. Waters finishes, we're going to hear from the victims, and I'm told this morning some of the lawyers. My concern is that the Victims' Bill of Rights guarantees the victims the ability to make a presentation. I have no problem with that whatsoever. There's going to be, I'm sure, extensive comments by them. But I'm concerned from what I read in social media about some of the lawyers making comments today. Some of them are they're going to express anger against me and Mr. Griffin and Mr. Murdaugh. Some of them are nakedly using this as an infomercial to sell coffee cups or t-shirts or bobbleheads in an effort to maximize their economic return on this process.
What? Did I let you listen? Here it is. Listen to this. Okay. Bobbleheads. Seriously? Bobbleheads? You know, why are you demeaning people like that? Seriously. Oh my God. And Eric Bland, he has a comeback for that. Oh my God. And it's a good one. So, and his partner. Honestly, I think I would have punched him in the nose. Honestly. Anyway, the Attorney General starts out by talking about how difficult this case was these cases. There was 102 charges. So probably 22 different cases, 4 or 5 different counties. I mean, if he had gone to trial in any of these counties, which some are smaller than Colleton County, where the murder trial happened, and for the media, the worldwide media, to descend on any of those towns would have broke them. I mean, it's just my kitty cat wants back in. It's cold. Her door got shut. So, I mean, the fact that it's settled is a good thing, because it's just been a real strain on South Carolina and their resources. So the Attorney General talked about how difficult it was to prepare or to get these victims to come forward. He said there was a real palpable fear in these victims because of Alex Murdaugh's status, his wealth, in the community. Nobody wanted to go up against this guy, but they were all convinced to do so. And and later on, Eric, one of the attorneys, I don't remember which one, points out that there are a lot more victims of people that their cases didn't even get filed. He didn't even have a chance to steal their money because he let the statute of limitations go by. You have to file an accident suit within, I don't know how it is in South Carolina, but usually it's within 2 years. There's usually a limit within 2 years from the date of the accident. And he would let those statutes blow, and so their cases would be gone. They wouldn't even have a case for him to steal from. So, anyway, the Attorney General starts by walking us through all of the cases, and not in any detail. He gives the name of the victims in the case number, how much was stolen, where that money went, and what charge he's pleading to. So I'm going to walk through them very quickly. He said this all started in 2008 or 9 when Alex started running into some financial trouble. And he had some very early large recoveries where he decided to dip his hand in the victim's money. So the first is Hakeem Pinkney. Now, I've talked about Hakeem Pinkney. Hakeem Pinkney was involved in a car accident, and he was a teenager, a football star, and he ended up a quadriplegic after this accident and had to live in a nursing home until he passes away one day when his ventilator is accidentally unplugged. Now, we don't know how that happened or if there was ever a lawsuit regarding that. But anyway, the lawsuit regarding the accident, he had a claim, and his mother, Natasha Thomas, she had a claim because she was the driver. Anyway, how horrible for this family. So he took over. He was charged with breach of trust as to both of their cases, and for over $300,000 for each. And he was in exchange for a 10-year sentence for each. 10 for Hakeem and 10 for Natasha. So the way he would do this is he would present these people with a large check, but then he would say that he needs to hold some money back to pay off liens. Now that is perfectly acceptable. It happens all the time because you have to, once a case is settled, then you have to find out who's got a lien and how much they're willing. You negotiate for usually pennies on the dollar, and then whatever's left, you give it to your clients. Well, he didn't do that. He just kept the money. So then there was a case of Arthur Badger. He was in an accident. His wife was killed. His child was injured, and he was charged with breach of trust for that. There was many other charges, but he pled to breach of trust, and in exchange for a 10-year sentence. And he had stolen $1.25 million from Arthur Badger. Then there was Dion Martin, who had been involved in a head-on collision in 2012 and spent several weeks on life support. But he did manage to survive that accident. So he was, his case got settled without even his knowledge. He didn't even know the case had settled. And Alex stole $338,000 from him, and then another $45,000 that was settled to 300,000 went to the fake forge, where he would say he was going to set up an annuity where they would get it on a monthly, and he never did that. Forge was his account. There is a company called Forge, but this was not that company. It was his a Bank of America account that he had that he called Forge, and he would deposit the check in his bank account. Then I didn't entirely understand this. He on the books at the law firm, the prior law firm. It no longer exists. It's a new law firm now, PMPED, where he practiced. He was a partner. He set up some kind of fake recovery of $185,000, which means it set him up for a bonus. I don't know. I didn't get that, but I guess I'm not that sophisticated. Next one was Johnny Bush. He pled to a computer crime. So that last one, he didn't mention what he pled to on that one. So this one, Johnny Bush, he pled guilty to a computer crime, $95,000 in exchange for a 5-year sentence. And he said that this was his longtime friend, Johnny Bush, and he ends up speaking later on. He tells Alec, he says, "Listen, I want you to put me on the list of visitors, and I want to come visit you, and then we're going to talk. Because I have some real intimate things I want to talk to you about." This is a guy who he went to elementary school with, grew up with, they went fishing, and even during, he spoke private, he spoke to Alex, and then Alex, during his speech, spoke to him. It almost brought tears to my eyes because you could tell that they had been really, really good friends, and that Johnny was really broken about this. And but like a lot of the other victims, very religious, forgiven, and Jesus will take care of you in the end. That whole thing, But I forgive you. Anyway, um, he settled his case without even telling him. And then the next one was Jamie and Richard. His sister was killed in a car accident, and Alex sold $90,000, pled guilty to breach of trust in exchange for a 10-year sentence. He also spent $5,000 of the client's money on a luxury trip to New York. Nice, huh? Then they talked about Randy Murdaugh, who's his brother, obviously, and this had to do with that check that he said he never got. So they cut him another check, so he ended up cashing them both. Yeah, so he pled guilty to money laundering and in exchange for a 20-year sentence with that one. Then there was a case called Randy Trotty for $9,000. He pled guilty for breach of trust in exchange for a 5-year sentence. Then there was Jordan Jinks. He pled guilty to forgery for in exchange for a 10-year sentence. He stole $60,000 and $85,000 in that case. Then there was the Gloria Satterfield case, and he pled guilty to false pretenses in exchange for a 20-year sentence. He stole everything from that lawsuit. Her surviving sons, Gloria Satterfield was his housekeeper. Now, Eric Bland represented her, and the boys spoke, her two surviving sons, and her sister was there. And one of the things Eric said in his speech, and I want you to hear Eric's speech because it was so good. So let's listen to that.
Yes, sir.
Before I get started, I'd like to thank you for all the time and attention that you put into these cases over the last 2 years. A lot of personal sacrifice, a lot of ups and downs, and just on behalf of the families that I represent and my partner Ronnie Richter represents, just want to thank you. I also want to thank Attorney General Alan Wilson and Assistant Attorney General Creighton Waters, who is just a tremendous ambassador of justice. They've had a dogged pursuit of Alex Murdaugh in these cases, both the financial and obviously the murder cases, and Creighton is just a tremendous public servant. This day, Your Honor, was coming for 2 years, and we're happy it's here today. I just want you to know that we are satisfied that this is a very, very strong sentence that has been agreed to by the parties. It sends a clarion bell signal to not only attorneys, but to anybody who wants to victimize the vulnerable. This was predatory behavior. This wasn't Enron. It wasn't WorldCom. It wasn't stealing money from faceless people, from shareholders. This was Alex Murdaugh stealing money from those that were closest to him. Gloria Satterfield, who broke bread with him and his family for 22 years, helped raise his kids. Jordan Jenks, that you'll hear from, lifelong friend since they were 8 years old, grew up, played ball together. This is close theft. This is the unicorn of all thefts. And, you know, he's on the Mount Rushmore of all criminals. He hit for the cycle. You know, he's convicted of money laundering, convicting of conspiracy, convicting of fraud, and most importantly, hit the home run. He was convicted of double murder. This is somebody that has tarnished our legal profession and tarnished our state. And, you know, we spent the past 2 years focusing on Mr. Murdaugh, but today is when we focus on the victims and the impact that his actions have had on victims. I met you for the first time at the bond hearing in October of 2021. I had never had the honor of appearing before you. And during that hearing, I said to you that Mr. Murdaugh needs to drink from the same cup of justice that every other criminal defendant has to drink from in our state. And I think today he's getting that full cup. It's served hot. And I'm very proud of what our state has done. But now let's focus on the victims. My partner Ronnie and I have had the pleasure of representing Tony Satterfield and Brian Harriet, along with the siblings of Gloria Satterfield. We've represented Alicia and Hannah Plyler, two sisters that you've heard about that were victimized by Alex Murdaugh. Jordan Jenks. We represented Sandra Manning. Nobody ever heard of Sandra Manning. She was the sister of Gloria Satterfield. $28,000 was missing. She was also a victim of Alex Murdaugh. We've represented Blake Hodge. Now, we've heard a lot of cases that talk about money theft, but there's a whole slew of other cases out there that deal with Mr. Murdaugh taking their cases. Blake Hodge was a paraplegic. And guess what he didn't do? He didn't file their cases on time. And case was lost on the statute of limitations. Those are victims too. We've represented Melvick Edwards, who's the father of Hakeem Pickney. We've talked a lot about Mrs. Pickney and Hakeem, but Hakeem had a father, Melvick Edwards. And there are some issues that concern that. So now I'm going to focus on Gloria Satterfield, because that was the trial that we would be doing yesterday. We were going to start this trial. And Gloria, I get very frustrated when I hear that she was just a housekeeper. She was so much more than that. I think Alex would agree she was so much more than that. She helped raise their kids, of Maggie and Alex's kids, Paul and Buster. She was a good woman. She was a good mother to Brian and Tony. And Alex exploited that woman, the woman who was in his house, the woman who helped raise his kids. He exhibited this type of predatory behavior where these people are not as educated as he was and is as a former lawyer. And he knew that they had something valuable. And he believed that their cases were his cases instead of the cases belonging to the client. So I'm going to introduce Brian Harriet. I'm going to introduce Tony Satterfield to the court and to everybody here. They're wonderful kids. They're glorious kids. Brian is a wonderful man, but he's a vulnerable adult. And Alex Murdaugh took advantage of this vulnerable adult. And it gnaws at me. And when I heard Mr. Wooders get up and go through the litany of crimes, I got nauseous. I'm sure I'm not the only one that got nauseous here. And so let's not delude ourselves. He's not just guilty of 22 crimes. He's guilty of all 102 of those crimes. And he will live knowing that he is guilty of those crimes. These boys, these men are wonderful Christian men, but their death of their mother was used to steal, to enrich himself at their expense. And I heard when he pled guilty, I wasn't in the courtroom a couple weeks ago, he used the words, "I wrongfully obtained." That's not wrongfully obtained. He stole. Use the right word. He was a thief. He used the word and said, "I misrepresented." No, you didn't misrepresent. You lied. That's what we have to talk about in this courtroom. He was a thief, and he stole, and he lied to these clients, those that are closest to him. He lied to his law partners. He lied to his own brother. $3.5 million of the $4.3 million that was recovered on behalf of the death of Gloria Satterfield, he stole. He took. And you heard Mr. Wooders, there's Mrs. Pickney coming in the courtroom. You heard Mr. Wooders say, he stole every dime, everything, every last penny from them. And, I heard it said that, Alex said 2 weeks ago, I'm really happy that I'm finally able to be pleading guilty, that I've been wanting to do this since September of 2021. No. You need to hear, Your Honor, what he has done since September of 2021 in order not to have accountability and in order not to accept responsibility for what he did. When we had the bond hearing, after the bond hearing, his lawyers said in a gaggle that the Satterfields should look to others to get their money. They shouldn't look to Alex, that there's other people that are responsible for that. That was the start. We sued him civilly. He didn't answer the complaint and accept liability and deny damages, which he could have done. He denied liability. From 12/21 through May of 22, we, my partner Ronnie Richter and I, negotiated a confession of judgment, the same confession of judgment that was introduced as, I think, Exhibit 23 by Mr. Wooders, for $4.3 million. The money that he stole. He accepted responsibility. Did he? You'll hear in a second. He did not. But took 6 months to get a simple confession of judgment that should have been signed immediately. the murder trial, Mr. Harpootlian, who's a wonderful lawyer, probably one of the best our state has ever produced, denigrated this guy on cross-examination, Tony Satterfield. Disrespected him. That's not a man that's accepting responsibility. That's not Alex Murdaugh accepting responsibility. After the trial ended in March, Mr. Murdaugh tried to add these two men to the federal court Nautilus action as party defendants. And it was said that if Nautilus wants any money, don't get it from Mr. Murdaugh. You got to get it from these guys. Because Mr. Richter and I, we recovered money, more than $7.5 million for them, but from other sources. If that wasn't enough, and Judge Gergel denied that motion, that wasn't enough to stop them. In the summer, they filed a motion to vacate the confession of judgment that he gave to them in May of 2022. He signed his name. He had two really good lawyers help him negotiate the terms. It was notarized under penalty of perjury. But then he went and filed a motion in our state court trying to vacate that confession of judgment. Judge Price denied it in August. Wrote an order that said, not happening. You gave it freely, voluntarily, without coercion or duress. You're a smart man. You knew what you were doing. Did it end there? No. They appealed it. They appealed that. Did it end there? No. We were supposed to have a trial, but for his plea 2 weeks ago. What happened next? They attacked the jury pool in Beaufort County. Incapable of being objective and fair because of all of the publicity, the pretrial publicity. They didn't end it there. They attacked you. They filed a motion to recuse you from hearing the Satterfield case, saying that you, who was giving your time, your sweat, and your blood, that you were conflicted, that you made any appropriate statements out of court. So the answer is no. He didn't want to do that in September of 2021, like he said 2 weeks ago, or was said in the courtroom. They did everything they could not to do it. But the calendar forced the plea. The 102 charges forced the plea. And there was all this about pretrial publicity, that somehow I caused pretrial publicity and others and people who wrote about it and podcasters or whatever. Boy, is that rich. The defense attorney himself's a podcaster. He started a podcast after the murder trial. They went to CrimeCon and they talked for 2 days about the case. They've done press conferences. They've done documentaries. They've gone on TV. If there's any pretrial publicity, it's caused in part by them. And they still came before you to say that Mr. Murdaugh couldn't get a fair trial. These victims' lives have been permanently altered. Let's focus on them. These are people that lost their mother, that lost their sister. The Plyler sisters lost their mother and brother. Arthur Badger lost his wife and was left to raise 5 kids, and you heard $1.3 million. He didn't get that money for 10 years. Do you know what it would have meant to that man to raise 5 kids with an additional $1.3 million? Thomas Moore, that Mr. Wooders talked about, a state trooper. He stole $125,000 from a state trooper. The man needed the money to retire. He couldn't retire because he had to pay back medical bills because he didn't have the $125,000.
Please, George, Your Honor, I hate to interrupt this, especially since I'm one of the best lawyers that the state's ever produced. But he's talking about other people's clients now. I'd ask the court restrict him to his clients. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Bland?
These clients couldn't assess risk. These two men couldn't assess risk. They couldn't navigate their way through the system. Even though Jordan Jenks is a council member in Hampton County, he couldn't navigate his way through the system. He was best friends with Alex since 8 years old. Alex would have been the last person that Jordan would have thought would reach into his pocket and steal from him. He preyed on them like a wolf does a rabbit, Your Honor. Being a lawyer is everything to my partner and me. 35 years we've spent helping people. Every one of these lawyers here, Jim May, Justin Bamberg, Mark Tinsley, we do it because we love to help our clients. It's a sacred trust. None of us ever look at our client's case as a piggy bank. He did it for 16 years. Now, I even disagree with the state. The state tags the number at $8.5 million. No. The federal government tags it at $10.5 million he stole. It isn't a white-collar crime. It's a red-collar crime. It's a red-collar crime because it includes lack of remorse. Just a systematic pattern of taking from clients, taking from the Satterfields, taking from the Jenks, taking from the Plylers, taking from the Mannings. It never stopped. The only reason it stopped was because of the boating accident, or it would have continued. Every client was transactional, and he has done more damage to our profession. All the lawyer jokes that we lie, we steal, we double deal, we go back in chambers with you, and we cut deals behind our clients' back. He sent us back generations. Our state was a laughingstock until you got a hold of that murder case. So now the Satterfields have a judgment. It's in stone. They withdrew their appeal. My clients want their money, Mr. Murdoch. When do you plan on paying it? They want that $4.3 million.
I told you it was really, really good. I was very moved by that. And how he explained that Gloria was she was more than a housekeeper. She helped raise your children. So, in rebuttal to that, during Alex's speech, which I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of playing it for you guys, I'm sure it's out there on YouTube if you want to listen to it. It's very lengthy, but he actually looks at them and says, by the way, my wife Maggie and I raised those two boys. And his sister shouted something out. I don't remember what she shouted, but how rude of him. Like, really? Are you serious? Anyway. Then there was Blondell Gary. He was deceased, and his personal representative was his daughter. He pled guilty to money laundering in the amount of $112,000 in exchange for a 20-year sentence. Then Christopher Anderson, again, money laundering, $750,000, 20-year sentence. Then there was this one case. Oh my gosh. I didn't catch the woman's first name, Ms. Mallory. Her daughter was killed by a drunk driver, and she left 3 kids without a mom. 3 kids. 3 minor kids. And he kept, he lured them in. He goes to the hospital, or this is what struck me about some of these cases. He actually solicited these cases, which you're not supposed to do that as a lawyer. You can't call up somebody and say, hey, I'm going to represent you. You can't. You have to wait till they call you. You can't go out and be soliciting clients. Very unethical, but Alex was doing that. And so he solicited this client. He got her. He told her how much money this case was going to be. This case should have been worth millions. But as time went by, he kept saying it was worth less and less money, to the point where he finally told her, listen, I can only get you $30,000, $10,000 for each kid. He stole $183,000, which is what he settled this case for. $183,000. What? He took that money. Then he tried to tell his firm, can we give back the third? Can we, they're really hurting this. I couldn't get them very much, and um, can we forgive the 30,000? And just as a gift, give it to him. And the firm said no, we can't. So I didn't get anything, nothing. So he pled guilty to money laundering in exchange for a 7-year sentence to run consecutive. Now, all these other sentences are concurrent to Gloria Satterfield, the 20-year sentence. Everything else is concurrent, except for this woman that was killed by the drunk driver. So that's how you get to 27 years that he was sentenced to. Then there was a case called Hirschberger. There was a Thomas More case, a state trooper, who was injured in the line of duty, and he stole $125,000 from him. Chris Wilson, his friend that he tried the case with, he stole money from him. Then there was, last but not least, tax evasion. He owed the state of South Carolina $619,000. Now, he is going to have to pay restitution, but we all know the well is dry. But the attorney general said he would work that out with the defense attorney later, how much restitution each victim would get, which is going to be a big fat zero. And PMPED, the former law firm, ended up paying almost all of these victims. They had to pay them. So these victims didn't walk away with nothing. They got paid by his law firm because he was an employee of the law firm. He was a partner, but they were still responsible for their employee. And so they were out $12 million for this. So we heard from Eric Bland, who, he said he hopes this sends a message to other people not to take advantage of vulnerable people. And I like that. He said this was predatory, the Mount Rushmore of all criminals. I love that part. That he had tarnished the profession in South Carolina. He did. He really did. Nationwide, nobody trusts lawyers. They didn't trust them to begin with. Now they really don't trust them. Yeah. Then we heard from Eric Richter, who gave it the hometown spin. He talked about how this had affected the people of South Carolina, in these small towns. And then Mark Tinsley. He didn't speak for long, but he's like, because one of the things, let me tell you where the money went, because I didn't tell you that part. Most of the money went to pay off loans that the bank, oh God, what was it? It just, I'm old, it went out of my head, but he would get these loans from the bank, Palmetto State Bank, and he had to repay the loans. And that's why a couple of those bankers have been charged as well, because they were in cahoots with him too. So he'd have to keep paying on the loans. Almost every case that he stole money, some of that money went to Curtis Eddie Smith in various forms for jobs that Curtis Eddie Smith never did. So Mark Tinsley points out, now Mark Tinsley was the boat crash guy that settled for millions of dollars on behalf of boat crash victims. Says, where is that money? You paid that money to Curtis Eddie Smith for jobs he didn't do. He was basically cashing checks for you and then giving you the money. Where is that money, Alex? We want to know where that money is. He's not wrong. I'd like to know where that money is too. So the judge had a question from the Attorney General. What is left after today? Is there anything left? And he says, yeah, he's still got all the charges, county charges, pending out of that whole incident on the side of the road where he faked his suicide, or not suicide. He faked someone, Curtis Eddie Smith, shooting him. Yeah, that whole thing, ridiculous. Um, then Alex addresses the court for like, I don't know, 30 minutes. He said, oh, it's just going to be 10 minutes. So he has the judge come, or the judge offers to unhandcuff him so he could turn the page on his paper. Um, and he's smiling. He says, thank you, that's very helpful. And they took him out of cuffs. And he is a big guy. Oh my God, he's really tall. And he's been working out in prison lately. If that's what you're into, like riding prisoners in jail, in prison. Well, he's, maybe he'll tell you where the money is. Yeah. So he got credit for 505 days served, and that was between the time he was arrested till the time he was sentenced for the murders. Also, I want to point out during that speech that he made, that lengthy speech, one of the things he was telling everybody how sorry he was, everybody, and he said, the reason I didn't take a plea right away is because I wasn't offered one. He says, I wasn't offered a plea until 2 weeks ago when it was supposed to go to, that was supposed to be a pretrial hearing, and it ended up being him taking a plea. And he says, as soon as it was offered, I took it. And it was way more than what I had hoped for. He still thinks he's going to get out of jail because he said he was sorry for all of his financial crimes because it kept the focus on him as the murderer of his wife and son instead of them going after the real killers. What? Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Alex, you did it. And he's so convincing. That's why he was a good lawyer, because he has the gift of gab, but he was very convincing. So even for a second, 2 seconds, I thought, wait a minute. Really? He didn't do it? Then how do you explain that he was at the kennels minutes before the murders? We know that from the phone video. Like, is it even possible that he took that golf cart, got in his truck, and drove away, and then they were killed like seconds later? I don't think so. He says he didn't do it. Is there any more? Oh my gosh. So I did want to end with Judge Clifton Newman's remarks. He's retiring. January 1st, he'll be retired. And he basically says, I'm done with you, Alex. I'm done. So I'm going to play a little bit of what the judge had to say, and that'll be the conclusion. Yeah.
It was September of 2021 when the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court assigned me to preside over the pending investigations involving the various offenses that you are being investigated for, initially including these financial crimes and the murder cases. And I have lived with this case now for over 2 years, and I have 34 days left before active retirement. And after imposing this sentence, your life will continue. I will turn the page and leave you behind. You're quite an enigma, a person that many of us thought we knew. And as I stated earlier, I can only recall you as being a fun-loving, happy person. I've never seen you sad. I've never seen you being anything other than a friendly, caring person. And it's so disappointing to see you again in this setting. I believe the last time we saw each other and you were not in jail was at a conference when you were poolside having a good time. And as it turns out, that was a couple of months after the passing of your wife and son. But you were having a good time. Made nothing of it, and then the Labor Day weekend events occurred, and next thing I know, I'm assigned to preside over all of your matters. Not only your matters, but others as well. And we started out with over 100 charges, indictments against various folks, and we've whittled that down to just a handful. Outstanding, and I'm happy to turn the page and turn not turn the remnants over to anyone else, but to certainly turn over anything pending against you to someone else. It's been said that these are white collar offenses. I've never had that distinction. I've never thought of it that way. I've looked at criminal offenses as criminal offenses. You know, 3 property crimes in South Carolina is you can get 10 years in prison. People have gotten 10 years for shoplifting, 3rd offense. I've sent people into retirement for committing criminal offenses over and over and over again. But I've never thought of it as being a white collar offense. Having had employees do embezzlement, church secretaries stole money, preachers stolen money, many offenses. But I never draw a distinction between a violent crime and other crimes. Certainly the law makes a distinction, and many violent crimes are non-parole offenses. The plea I'm accepting with you, you must serve 85% of the time. The parties have indicated that they are the victims, to the extent that they can be called victims. That's my preferred term for the group of people who have been preyed upon or victimized. They've all indicated that they would like for the court to accept the negotiated sentence. It is a stern sentence. The question was asked, what kind of animal are you? You're an enigmatic person. I don't know that you understand yourself. What comes to mind is a young man that I sentenced to death penalty for killing a police officer and setting his body on fire. And though personally I was opposed to capital punishment, he was sentenced to death. And in writing up that sentence report, I concluded that he was heartless. He was just empty. And when I see you and I listen to you and I reflect on all that I've seen since being appointed, assigned to these cases, you come closest to that young man. Being empty, I don't see anything. I tried to reach you at sentencing in the other case. I've listened to you here today, and I don't see anything there. Hopefully something will emerge within your spirit, within your soul. Certainly, being a person of your age and intelligence and experience, you have a lot to offer to the people that you encounter on a daily basis in the institution, and I think it's admirable that you've indicated that you will help them and continue to try to do good by them. You'll certainly have a lot of opportunity to do that. You know, as we look at it, all of us, you know, none of us are perfect. Many of us do things that we shouldn't do. It's just unimaginable to me that you have done some of the things that you've done, and whether it's you or someone you become upon using drugs or through the process of just committing the crimes over and over the period of years. I don't know. I don't even know who I'm speaking to now. But being a person of power and influence, and the question is raised of what type of character do you have? A person who would prey upon folks who are vulnerable and who are of a lower perceived estate than you, how you would prey upon those people who you say you love, and you would capitalize on a disparity of what you have versus what they had and what they need and what they desired. You know, in my years, I know of no greater joy as a lawyer that I've had during my 47 years as a lawyer than the joy of having a satisfied client, of delivering good results for a client and experiencing that joy with them. I can think of no greater joy than I've experienced in being able to deliver on behalf of a client. And I'm sure you've experienced that joy as well, until you decided that the only joy you're concerned about was your own. I take no joy at all in imposing this sentence, but it is what it is. And you'll have to suffer the consequences of your acts, continue to suffer the consequences, and hopefully some good will come out of you as you move forward. There are a number of counts here, a number of indictments, and you'll get an individual sentence as to each one. You have one 20-year sentence and a consecutive 7-year sentence for a total sentence of 27 years. Most of the offenses pled to are serious offenses under the law. Subjects you to the 3 strikes law. You are given credit for time served pursuant to section 241340 to be calculated by the South Carolina Department of Corrections. I think that completes the sentence. Anything further regarding this sentence?
Your Honor, just for clarification, and I think the sentencing sheets reflect this, but he's got all those sentences concurrent for 20,
Yes.
and then there's one 7-year consecutive sentence. So he's got a 27-year sentence, 85% parole
Yes.
eligible, max out,
Yes.
right?
And it's reflected on the sentencing sheet.
Yes, sir.
Any comment about that, Mr. Waters or Mr.?
That is correct, Your Honor. There's 20 years at 85% and then a 7 at 85%. And again, those are no parole offenses, meaning got to do 85%
Right.
or more, depending on how he behaves.
And that's the sentence of the court. Mr. Murdaugh, any final comments?
Yes, sir. I will just reiterate what I did say to all of you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank
Good luck
you,
to
Thank you, Your Honor, and enjoy being with you.
Yes, sir. Very well. Enjoyed being with you as well.
So what'd you think? So I just wanted to spend a couple minutes and say that, there was a lot of maligning of podcasters and YouTubers and social media. Do I do this for entertainment? Yeah, I do, but I also do it because I think it's owed to the public. I think the public needs to know that these things are happening out there. They need to know that attorneys will take advantage of you. They will. Alex is not the first, and he won't be the last. So if you have a lawyer, you need to be very, very careful. I mean, I don't know. So maybe public service? Yeah. But, I've been covering this case for 2 years. 2 years. A lot of my life went into learning this Alec Murdaugh case. I was first approached 2 years ago by someone from South Carolina who said, I think you should cover this case. Nobody was covering it at that point except for Mandy Matney. Bless her heart, she was doing a podcast, and she's from South Carolina, or lives in South Carolina, and she did this podcast, and I was able to get a lot of facts and stuff from her. So credit to her, but it wasn't on anybody's radar like it is now. I mean, everybody's covering it now, but so I spent the next 2 years keeping track of this case. So it's over now, guys. It is over. Well, the financial part is over. We still have to deal with, is he going to get a new trial based on the jury? It doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound like it, but who knows? Anyway, so that's the show for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. A little bit longer than normal. Come watch tonight. I'll show you the painting that I'm it'll be finished by tonight. It's just a little, like half a section to go. So come watch tonight. Craft with Me Wednesday. That is at 7 Central Time, 8 Eastern. And my guest will be Color and Chat with Joanna. Very, very funny. So I will see you all then. If not, I'll see you tomorrow. There's no trials going on. So we'll see what I can come up with in the next couple of days. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. Take care.